The protagonist has officially been identified as a traveler. Ascending the heavenly road, treading on songs, dancing fingers to cover the sky. Prince Sixuan of Taiyin woke up from the divine source and, carrying the will of the ancient emperor of Taiyin, embarked on the journey to cross the thousands of ethnic groups and revive the path of becoming emperor in Taiyin. The protagonist starts with a fairy tale, not following the old path of Yi Fan, not competing for the protagonist's chance. Brothers can eat with peace of mind. Keywords of the novel. No pop-ups for the Crown Prince of the Heavenly Shadows. Download the complete text of the Crown Prince of the Heavenly Shadows, and read the latest chapters of the Crown Prince of the Heavenly Shadows. Chapter 1. In the City of God. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. In the City of God. Beidu Donghuang, Shenqing. This ancient and enduring city is the true center of the eastern wilderness cultivation world. It is inaccessible to non-cultivators and difficult for those who are powerless to move. The rosy glow shines brightly, with thousands of auspicious colors. Even outside the city, hundreds of miles apart, one can see the divine light of the Dao Dao rising from the city, gathering in the sky above the big city to form the vision of auspicious beasts such as true dragons, colorful phoenixes, and vermilion sparrows. Legend has it that several great saints once transformed the Tao here, and the Heavenly Master also restrained multiple dragon veins, which created this holy land for cultivation. The most ordinary taverns and tea houses on the ground are mostly made of gold and jade, and are blessed with divine power. They are constantly filled with soft-colored light, and the wine lovers and tea guests who come and go are also not touching the ground, with a fairy-like appearance that is not stained with dust. There are many magnificent palaces floating in the sky, suppressing the sky and making people yearn for them. They are the strongholds of various holy shrines and divine dynasties stationed here. Yaoqi, Yaoguang Holy Land, Wanyao Palace, and even the great Xia and Jiuli divine dynasties in Zhongzhou have palaces floating and sinking in the sky above this sacred city. Shifang is one of the most distinctive products of practitioners in this land of cultivation. The major mining areas are rich in rare stones, which are often the source of the essence of heaven and earth. It is the most common currency among practitioners. The stone archways in the divine city are also the storefronts of various holy places, and each holy land is willing to take out the most distinctive stones and place them here. Many strange stones from one of the 7 forbidden areas of life, the Taichu ancient mine, are displayed here, or the 9 orifices born are like stone fetuses pregnant with the Holy Spirit. The treasure map of life on the stone is like a precious treasure, with its peculiar shape exposed. The hidden treasure inside may be a world-shaking divine treasure, but it may also be ordinary material. The Dharma is hard to see, the divine arts are hard to see, and gambling on stones is gambling on vision and fortune. Daoi Holy Land Shifang, Tianzhou District Middle. This is the layout of the Daoi Holy Land, which has existed for tens of thousands of years, in this sacred city. It covers an area of only a few miles and is surrounded by a clear stream, paved with blue stones. The roadside and water are dotted with strange stones, and the clear water murmurs and the strange stones jingle like a true fairyland. In this fairyland-like park, an ancient tree stands in the center. Upon closer inspection, it is clearly an old vine that has been said to have lived for tens of thousands of years, with thick vines distributed throughout the entire park. At this moment, this usually peaceful stone workshop was surrounded by people, mostly old and gray-haired individuals, but each one was full of spirited individuals. At this moment, none of these immortal old men spoke, and everyone's attention was focused on a stone platform in the center of the field. There was a young man who was only 15 or 16 years old, dressed in white clothes, with a bun tied behind his head. He was frowning and caressing his chin, showing a look of hard thinking. Beside him, a simple and honest-looking young man with a black face couldn't help but speak up and advise. "Do you still want to continue? You have already prescribed the divine medicine and dragon-patterned black gold sword from the ice and snow source today. Do you want to continue? I think there seems to be something wrong with this stone. It seems to have a bit of dragon energy, but upon closer inspection, it doesn't seem very similar. Upon hearing this, the young man in white replied and gently placed his hand on the blue stone in front of him. His palm shone brightly, and a dazzling golden light burst out from his hand, seemingly piercing through the stone and helping people see through the scene inside. It's the turning a stone into a golden hand in Yuan Shu. This young man is using it for the second time. Today I saw that this young man has opened the flying immortal stone and the 9 orifices stone. Is this the same as opening this Yunxian stone again? Haha. Young people are so bold. Surrounded by them, several familiar elders chatted and highly praised the young hero in the center of the field who mastered the active technique. In the other corner of the stone garden, several young cultivators also stared intently at the young man in the center of the field who was practicing the source technique, as if thinking about something. They are Tianyao from various holy shrines and are qualified to enter the Tianzihao Park. They are naturally the top Tianyao from various holy shrines and shrines. Yao Guangshengzi, Xia Yiming, the prince of Great Xia, and his sister, Jiang Yifei, the leader of the Aragia Jiang family, as well as Yao Yuekong, the young master of the heavenly demon palace, will all be the heroes who will decide the future direction of Donghuang and even Beidou ancient star in decades to come. In the center of the field, the light in the palm of the young man named Gu Feng's hand became even more intense, turning stones into gold as if his hand was really going to shine through the stones, so bright that people couldn't open their eyes. Little brother, how have you been watching? Why don't you just drive it? Old friend, this stone of immortality is like an immortal sitting in a circle. It is rumored that someone has heard the sound of the great road in this stone, and at least it contains a saint-level secret treasure. Yeah, little brother, this stone is the obsession of us old folks. Shouldn't we just settle it together today? Several familiar senior figures were laughing and encouraging him. These elderly people were at least the senior elders of various religions stationed here, such as the senior elders of Dian Holy Land, the senior uncle of the Jiuli Divine Dynasty, and even a few powerful figures who had retired from the main position of the Holy Land earlier, hanging idle jobs to retire in this divine city. The ancient style, however, seemed to have not heard these words, as the hands emitting golden light explored this immortal stone, wanting to glimpse the mysteries within it. At first, he didn't pay much attention to this strange stone. After all, even if Dao-E Holy Land had only a hint of certainty, he wouldn't place it here. Moreover, his source technique was close to Shaocheng, and he didn't even notice the uniqueness of this stone just now. Is the inspiration in my heart just an illusion? The ancient style muttered to itself, causing the black-faced boy next to him to rub his nose. His name is Li Heishui, the biological grandson of one of the 13 major bandits in the northern regions. He came here to help his friend break through the 4 poles. But at this moment, he felt a little flustered because from the mouths of the old men not far behind, he learned that this Yunxian stone was worth 10,000 pounds. This stone costs tens of thousands of pounds, much more expensive than the flying immortal stone that was cut into divine medicine. You can take it easy. He transmitted the message with divine intent, speaking to the ancient style who was focused on looking at the stones. Seeing that one's own source technique was difficult to harvest, and hearing a friend mention the price of this strange stone, even the ancient face couldn't help but tremble, secretly saying that this stone workshop is really dark. Well, I want to try again. If it's not possible, that's all for today. After speaking, the golden light in Gu Feng's hand dissipated, and the 5 great paths palace inside his body shone, condensing divine power in his eyes, and a hazy purple radiance brewing in his eyes. Brother Gu Feng is going to use other source methods now. Shenyun Yuanfa, with purple light shining in its eyes, is that Yuan Tian I. In the crowd, discussions among senior figures quietly began again. There are many knowledgeable individuals among them, who have practiced for hundreds of years and have read countless ancient books. The thousands or even tens of thousands of years of ancient history are difficult for them to keep secret, so they quickly recognized the origin of ancient customs. Young hero, at this age, he possesses various source magic secrets, probably a hidden genius from some source magic family. An old man sighed, as if he saw a great power, at least that of a source land master rising. Open. The divine spell in Gu Fengmu was ready, and he let out a loud shout. His eyes burst out with a more dazzling purple light than before. This is a type of source technique recorded in the Book of Yuan-Tian, which is guided by divine power, with a golden light shining on the eye, and can reveal the mysteries in the stone. It is difficult for those who have not achieved perfect cultivation in the Taoist palace to achieve. Ding! Whether it was the power of the source technique or the revelation of the mystery within the stone, everyone present heard a ding-dong sound in their ears. It seemed like a fairy flicked the precious jade with her delicate hand, or like a vermilion bird lightly pecked at the divine gold with its divine beak, making everyone feel like they had arrived at a fairyland. The scene fell into a brief silence. Like a giant tree, the ancient vines as thick as several people hugging each other sway, leaving only the rustling of leaves in the wind, the murmuring of flowing water, and the indescribable jingling sound in everyone's ears in this park. Even though the cultivation in the entire room was the most profound and unfathomable, the old Taoist nun who had been sitting under the tree and meditating intently also briefly fell into a state of unconsciousness. "Old Gu, are you okay?" The simple and honest voice shattered the intoxication of everyone present, and as they looked around, the ancient style in the center of the room covered his eyes with his hand, and a few strands of blood oozed from his fingers. The sound just now was made by the black-skinned boy beside him. "It's okay." Gu Feng quickly wiped away the bloodstain from his eyes with his sleeve, nodded at Li Heishui, and before everyone regained their senses, shouted to the old Taoist not far away under Gu Tang, "Senior, I want to cut this piece." In an instant, everyone seemed to wake up from a dream, looking at the young man with bloodstains in his eyes but a smile on his face and a lively expression. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Gods and Men in the Source. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Gods and Men in the Source. In Donghuang Shencheng, a sacred stone archway of Daoi, the crowd tightly surrounds the most expensive and miraculous Tianzi industrial park here. Many of them are standing in the park of the Tianzihu Park, while others are blocked outside the park due to insufficient qualifications. However, no one cares, and everyone's attention is focused on the energetic young man in the middle of the Tianzihu stone square. With such immortal sounds, I wonder what kind of immortal treasures are hidden in this stone of immortality. Unfortunately, this young man is too much of a chicken thief. If he could buy this strange stone before he buys it. Sigh. Being able to catch a glimpse of the divine material among the three strange stones, this trip is not a loss. Under the stunning or regretful gaze of the elderly figures, the old Taoist nun sitting under the ancient vine nodded and slid her hands twice in the void, causing many divine patterns to vaguely appear in the air. "I have banned the void here for you, rest assured." The familiar appearance of this old Taoist has attracted many people in the stone workshop to marvel. This ancient-style young man has opened such a divine object that needs to be sealed in the void for the second time today. "Thank you very much, Senior." Gu Feng took out a set of tools from his sleeve, pulled out a few silvery tools, and began to search for the best cutting point. "What did you just see? Can you make your eyes bleed so decisively by it?" Li Heishui was so focused on the ancient style, but couldn't resist his curiosity. He could only teleport and ask a question. Upon hearing this, Gu Feng lightly tapped the strange stone with a silver small hammer, located on the chest of the immortal. After listening carefully, he finally spoke to his friend. "It's hard to say, I vaguely saw a person sitting cross-legged. In the chest of this immortal, a light directly pierced my eyes. Shouldn't there really be a holy spirit hidden in this Yunxian stone? Little leaf, let's not cause a big disaster." Li Heishui was surprised, almost shouting out the real name of Gu Feng. Fortunately, it was a divine transmission that did not reveal any clues. "No problem, according to the Book of Heaven, what is seen may not be true, and what is seen in the eyes of the gods is often a vision. For example, the person who meditates may have meditated with someone before, or directly manifested the Tao. A mark was placed on the shoulders and chest of Yunxian stone, as well as on the part of Luanhai. Gu Feng hesitated for a moment before making a direct move. The silver knife in his hand was like the divine wings of Bai Feng, landing on the chest of the immortal. In an instant, an immensely condensed radiance suddenly appeared in the stones, and a dark sea covered the entire Tianzi Park of Daoi Shifang in the blink of an eye, completely flooding this area in an instant. Everyone, including the old Taoist undercutting, felt a strong sense of suffocation. Although it was just an illusion, it was like a real sea, pressing them hard to breathe. The ancient style in the center of the field was also suffocated by this feeling. Li Heishui, who was closest to him, had already been pressed to the ground by the dark sea shadow, enduring the unimaginable pressure. If it weren't for his unparalleled physique, it would be difficult for him to stand here. Just peeling off a piece of stone skin, it directly caused such a big anomaly, which shocked him immensely. What is that? A holy weapon that has opened up a path of Yin. Cough, 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 cough. Is this cutting out a divine person? Everyone was in an uproar, and the older and stronger ones were not hesitant. They waved their hands and released a series of divine lights, helping the old Taoist in Daoi Holy Land strengthen the divine patterns of the formation. Continue. The ancient style gritted its teeth, its palm was like electricity, its silver knife was like light, and a large piece of stone skin was peeled off. In an instant, the sea-like pressure grew stronger, pressing down on the patterns of the park, as if they would be crushed in the next second. Oh my God! Is that the divine source? No. That's a living person in the divine source. Isn't it today that the Holy Spirit was cut out of the stone? Brother Gu, stop it quickly. It seems like the Holy Spirit in the stone who slaughtered an ancient star in ancient books. In the center of the Shifang Park, Gu Feng stared blankly at the strange stone in front of him. A large piece of stone skin was peeled off, and the transparent divine source emitted a palpitating divine light. What surprised him even more was that there was still a person sitting in the center of the divine source. A person wearing an ancient-style blue robe, with a disheveled head and sitting cross-legged. The cultivators at the bottom of the entire Tianzi stone archway, both inside and outside, are the 3 or 4 heavenly heavens of the Tao Palace. They may not have seen the divine source, nor can they see what is inside it, but they all know that the one who emits such divine power is definitely not an ordinary thing. As for the supreme elders and old imperial uncles of the major holy sites with higher cultivation, not to mention, they have been so shocked by the people sitting in the source center that they cannot speak. Silence. The entire Tianzi stone archway fell into a suffocating silence. Even though many people find it difficult to breathe under the dark sea shadow, they are doing their best to perform their Taoist deeds, just to catch a glimpse of the divine creatures created by the ancient wind. Truly, the divine beings in the source. An old man with almost lost hair and teeth spoke, his voice hoarse and deep, his gaze fixed on the figure in the center of the divine source. No one could refute the old man's words, because the glow on his body was so dazzling that it pushed away the pitch-black sea shadow. His spirit and spirit were like that of a young man with fierce dragons and tigers, making one's heart tremble. Only senior figures know him. This is the previous deputy saint of Dayan Holy Land, who has lived for almost 2,000 years and has an unfathomable cultivation level. Not necessarily, this kind of black aura may be a evil sealed by the ancient sage, which may cause great trouble. Someone spoke again, also an old man with deep eye sockets, an old woman holding an emerald green jade ruler in her hand, which opened up a divine space to block the shadow of the Black Sea. Silence. This yin qi is majestic and contains a sense of vitality. How could it be emitted by evil forces? The old vice saint of Dian Holy Land's eyes were blazing as he heard the old woman's gibberish. His pupils shrank and he scolded in a low voice. Now that the people in the divine source have been cut off, breaking the seal and coming out is just a matter of time. We cannot help but hear the old lady of the four symbols Holy Land talking nonsense to the elders. Yeah. Elder Lu, be careful not to bring trouble out of your mouth. The divine source is about to break its seal, don't speculate on the origin of that divine person. A few more people began to reprimand, all of whom were elderly figures who could stand in the Black Sea. At this moment, they were all reprimanding the elder surnamed Lu from the Four Elephants Holy Land. At their level of cultivation, they are well aware of the terrifying nature of the people in the source. The living beings who can be sealed inside are at least the strong ones in the Sendai realm. They can be great in the Holy Land and also the emperor in the divine dynasty. This kind of existence, even if it is truly evil, will coax him. If he turns his back, Dong Huang will surely face a catastrophe. It's the old man's rudeness. The old woman holding the emerald green jade ruler, after being pointed, also understood her joints and realized that her speech was very inappropriate. She quickly admitted her mistake. She is just the seven heavens of dragon transformation, how dare she refute the words of these half-step capable old men. The aura of the Black Sea has weakened. In the Tianziho Park, there are elderly people whispering, and everyone has the same feeling. Everyone's gaze fell on the center of the park, the Black Sea dispersed, and the dazzling radiance of Xinyuan shone like dawn and divine light, shining on the faces of Gu Teng, Gu Feng, and Li Heishui. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Taiyin Divine Power. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Taiyin Divine Power. Li Heishui was not greatly affected by the shadow of the Black Sea. In his hand was a gray-black iron token, which had just emitted a faint light to protect him. This is a protective artifact given to him by his grandfather, who is one of the 13 major bandits in the northern regions. It is now passively triggered. But his gaze couldn't help but be nervous, because his friend was a bit far away from him and he was not timely protected by the divine light of the gray iron token. Old times. Are you okay? He called out to his friend's pseudonym in a low voice, and his hand holding the token trembled slightly. Don't worry, he's fine. The elderly but peaceful female voice sounded from Li Heishui's side, letting his suspended heart relax a bit. He turned around and saw the old woman sitting motionless under the ancient vine in the Daoi Holy Land. This old master, who has always been unfathomable, is said to have been sitting in the same place for 10 years without leaving that stone platform. Surprisingly, he took action. Mrs. E, you can see it too. The same aged voice came from the other side, once again attracting Li Heishui's attention. The person is wearing a black dragon robe, with golden eyes shining. The real dragon on the robe seems to be alive, shaking its head and blinking its eyes, exuding immense majesty. Li Heishui didn't know this old man, but he recognized the dragon robe on his body, which belonged to one of the four immortal divine dynasties in Zhongzhou, Jiuli. This is definitely an unfathomable old uncle. Yeah, a cultivator who cultivates the Taiyin, a stable high-level figure. If it were for me, I would definitely not be able to release such an aura. The old woman surnamed Yi from Daoi Holy Land sighed and greeted the old imperial uncle of the Nine Li divine dynasty. Moreover, the Taiyin is filled with vitality, and his age at the time of being sealed may not exceed 100 years old. Another elderly voice sounded, joining the conversation of the two great masters. Li Heishui felt a bit numb in his heart. The three experts gathered together, and his two gambling stones attracted the attention of three such figures. I've met three seniors. Even if Li Heishui is a great-grandson, he dare not show any negligence and salute. Only the newly arrived expert gave a faint response to Li Heishui, while the other two only glanced at him. Oh. Master Jiang, you have practiced the Eternal Universe Sutra to the Yang, and Xiangbi can see more than the two of us. The old uncle of the Ninely Divine Dynasty smiled and bowed to the new old man. He had heard of this new red-robed expert. The descendant of Emperor Hengyu, the last saint of the Jiang family, was named Jiang Ziming. The three of them used their divine power to shield the surrounding space, and except for Li Heishui and Gu Feng, the others could not hear what they were talking about. Gu Feng was still stunned by the ghostly shadow of this terrifying Black Sea, and only Li Heishui listened to the conversation of these three great powers in its entirety. Practicing the way of Taiyin is a great ability under the age of 100. Li Heishui only felt the taste and tongue were dry. Cutting stones to create such a terrifying figure made him feel like he was dreaming. Let's wake up this ancient friend first. It's hard to speculate about this Taiyin Great Nang, as he can't withstand the power of the Great Nang. The two great masters nodded, and old Master Jiang walked over to Gu Feng with a smile. His hand, which contained the power of the universe, gently patted his shoulder twice. Gu Xiaoyu, why don't you wake up quickly? The voice was gentle, but a majestic warmth surged in, causing the ancient wind holding a silver knife to stand frozen in place to suddenly shake. He was too close to the man in the divine source, inevitably influenced by the phantom of the Black Sea. At this moment, he was still in a daze, but it was not a big deal. The ancient style's body trembled, and the golden light belonging to the ancient holy body unconsciously shrouded around him. When he looked back, he found a red-robed old man behind him who had never seen him before smiling at him, and couldn't help but shiver with excitement. I actually manipulated the power of the Holy Communion in front of this difficult-to-fathom old man, it's like a great death. You indeed have a protective artifact left by a senior expert on your body, but unfortunately, you are too close to this source of great power to play any role. Surprisingly, the old sage of the Jiang family did not see any trace within Gu Feng's body and only regarded the golden light as a protective deity. It's no wonder that he and the other two great powers have all their attention focused on the divine source, and with the identity of a handsome ancient wind source, they haven't left much attention on him. Thank you very much, Senior. Gu Feng bowed and quickly ran to the divine light emanating from the black iron token where Li Heishui was located. You should know that although the shadow of the Black Sea has weakened, it has not completely dissipated, and the ancient style dare not resist at close range. Soon, only three powerful figures remained around the divine source that wrapped the man in blue. The gray-robed old woman surnamed Yi from Daoi Holy Land, the old imperial uncle Li Hong from Jiuli, and the old sage Jiang Ziming from the deserted Jiang family. How about sending it to the great holy soldier of Dao Yi for cutting, or finding a Holy Land family with imperial soldiers? The old uncle of Jiuli, Li Hong, had no expression on his face, only endless majesty and nobility, and asked the two great masters. Upon hearing this, Jiang Ziming, the old sage in the red robe, still had the same smiling expression on his face, his gaze fixed on the old Taoist named Yi. We're not at home, it all depends on what Dao Yi Xin means. Then send it to Daoi Holy Land to open up this divine source, and the great power in it must not be able to withstand the great holy soldier. The old Taoist nun of Dao Yi readily accepted the name of the fairy and decisively decided to deal with this divine source. Her eyes shone brightly as she scanned the two great powers and said in a deep voice, "The matter should not be delayed. Among them, the nature of the great power is unpredictable. The three of us must quickly send this divine source to the Holy Land. I also invite two Taoist friends to go together. There will be generous gifts to thank each other in the Holy Land." No need. Without waiting for the two great experts of the Jiuli and Jiang families to be polite, the majestic divine sense was transmitted to the minds of the three great experts and the nearby Gu Feng and Li Heishui. Boom! In the next moment, the endless divine light, as black as ink, engulfed the positions of the three great powers, but isolated Li Heishui, Gu Feng, and everyone in the Tianzi stone archway. Subsequently, that position only left endless black ocean shadows. What happened to Fa. The first person to react was actually Li Heishui. The gray iron token in his hand was incredibly powerful, said to have been forged by the leader of the 13 great pirates, perfectly withstanding the remnants of the Taiyin divine power. Did the creatures in the source devour the three great beings? The former vice saint of Dian Holy Land, the old man with almost all his hair and teeth falling out, now had round eyes like copper bells, and his tone was full of trembling and fear. Everyone was horrified, and many elderly people remembered the terrifying story recorded in ancient books about a creature from the source slaughtering an ancient star with blood. For a moment, hundreds of cultivators with good cultivation both inside and outside the Tianzi stone archway were in a fierce battle, almost ready to leave. Boom! But completely beyond everyone's imagination, in just over a decade, a huge roar rang out again from the black ocean of the divine power of the underworld. Bang! 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 With three dull noises, three figures were respectively knocked out of the black ocean phantom and heavily collided with the array-patterned divine wall in the mid-air of the Tianzihu Park. As both human beings, when we meet, we must seize a certain divine source and regard someone as fish and meat. We will consider them to be of the same race and impose slight punishment. A loud and majestic voice came from the phantom of the Black Sea, a language that everyone had never heard of, but everyone could hear the meaning from this grand divine idea. Did one person defeat the three powerful allies with just over 10 breaths? The old saint of Dian Holy Land trembled with his hands as he looked at the three great powers in a disheveled state in the sky, his tone carrying a strong sense of despair. In the future, I will release 2 chapters every day until 7 or 8 p.m. together. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Son of the Holy Emperor of Taiyin. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Son of the Holy Emperor of Taiyin. At this moment, the old Taoist with the surname Yi was dressed in some tattered clothes. The jade hairpin inserted on her head was shattered by the divine power of the Taiyin, and her white hair was scattered all over her head, very disheveled. She held a shimmering silver jade pendant in her hand, her eyes cracking as she stared at the man standing in the endless Black Sea in the distance. The pattern of the Tianzi Garden in Shifang, Daoi Holy Land, is extraordinary. It was personally arranged by a semi-saint under the Great Holy See who opened up the Holy Land. She is the longest living group of people in the Daoi Holy Land, and naturally knows that the array patterns here are powerful. If she were to exert all her strength to stimulate her, no one would be able to completely block her under the great Qing King of the Immortal Three. Now, including myself, 3 of them are capable of simultaneously striking and jointly summoning the semi-holy formation pattern here at a critical moment, but they are still knocked away by that man's palm. May I ask, what kind of expert is Dao Yu? We all come from major holy sites in the eastern wilderness, with no malicious intent, just to prevent people from the source from harming the world. The old Taoist knew that if she forcefully attacked, although this Taiyin powerful might not be able to escape this Donghuang divine city, her 3 companions would definitely be slapped to death by him, and she could only surrender to the soft way. Her divine thoughts were transmitted not only to the Taiyin mighty in the shadow of the Black Sea, but also to the 2 equally distressed mighty ones on both sides of her. Taoist friend, what the fairy Yi said is not false. We should read more ancient books and know the secrets of the Holy Spirit in the source. We are afraid that Taoist friends will slaughter half of the ancient star with blood before we can come up with this plan. Not bad, we are all holy temples from Donghuang and Zhongzhou. How could we do those things that oppress our fellow believers? The old sage of the Jiang family, Jiang Ziming, and the old uncle of the 9 Li divine dynasty, Li Hong, also successively transmitted divine messages to explain to the men in the dark sea of the Taiyin. Although they were practicing the orthodox imperial scriptures, their cultivation was 1 head lower than that of the old Taoist named Yi, and they were slapped by that person. At this moment, a trace of blood was inevitably spilled on the corners of their mouths. The 3 great powers and numerous practitioners watched as the Black Sea fell into silence. The men inside were pondering something, and there was enough time for a cup of tea to remain silent. But no one dared to express dissatisfaction, including the three great powers and several half-step great powers from various holy sites such as Dian Holy Land and Wanshu Holy Land, all standing in place, afraid of offending the terrifying great power in the Black Sea again. Just kidding, the three experts can't hold on for more than a decade together, and everyone else combined probably won't be able to withstand a slap. Through the vicissitudes of life, I never imagined that one day someone would become the Holy Spirit among the people of the world. Young yet full of vicissitudes, the ancient saying is vast and obscure, yet it intrigues the great path, making all the cultivators barely recognize what this great power is saying. Wow! In the next moment, the divine light of the Taiyin surged, and the majestic Black Sea turned upside down. The terrifying vision in everyone's eyes suddenly flowed back into the man's will see. It's really his ocean of suffering. Some old men roared in their hearts, feeling their hearts trembling and their hands trembling violently, yet they dared not say a word. Under the Black Sea, Yuanzhong Man is a young man who appears to be under 30 years old. He hunts in a blue robe, with flying hair and a calm and atmospheric aura emanating from his body. In the depths of his eyes, there seemed to be an endless river of stars shattered and reborn, countless secondary annihilations, teaching people to sink into it. Since that's the case, it's quite abrupt. 3 Taoist friends, please forgive me. He nodded lightly and arched his hands slightly. The 3 of them, including the old Taoist named Yi, naturally dared not be careless and stood in the void, bowing back to the man. The man in the green robe didn't wait for the 3 of them to be polite, so he spoke in an ancient language that was difficult to understand and asked these experts. Excuse me, where is this place? And what year is it tonight? His ancient sayings did not block anyone, not only the 3 great experts, but also everyone present could hear them. Ah! The 3 great experts were momentarily speechless, and in a hurry, they didn't know how to answer this ancient man. They exchanged a glance at each other, and the old sage of the Jiang family, Jiang Ziming, stepped forward and bowed again, his divine thoughts transmitting a message. Dao Yu, this is the Beidu Donghuang divine city, and now it has been 10,000 years since the reign of Emperor Qing. At this moment, his cultivation and combat power were all stabilized, so he could only be asked by others and answered by himself. Jiang Ziming smiled bitterly in his heart, as he was the old master of an ancient family that had traversed the eastern wilderness for over 1,000 years, and had never been so passive before. He saw a gleam in the eyes of the ancient man in the blue robe in the distance, as if he had thought of something, but he quickly restrained himself. Beidu. This ancient star has been here more than once, but who is the great emperor? I have been sleeping for many years and have really missed the birth of many great emperors. The voice of the man in the green robe made Jiang Ziming nod in his heart. This ancient figure has indeed existed for more than 10,000 years, and is probably a figure that has been passed down from ancient times. The Qing Emperor was an invincible demon emperor who became a Taoist over 30,000 years ago, and he was the only great emperor in ancient times. Since you don't know, then I will ask again, do you know about the Western Emperor? Jiang Ziming pondered and immediately gave the name of a rather ancient emperor. The Western Emperor Cheng Dao dates back tens of thousands of years, and the old Taoist nuns surnamed Yi and Li Hong on the side believe that the other party should be able to find their own timeline from this great emperor. Is it Emperor Shi? I still don't know. The man in the green robe showed a pensive expression, and the Milky Way in his eyes was shattered and reshaped countless times, but he still shook his head. Do you know the emperor, senior? In the Tianzi stone archway, someone asked again. In ancient history, it is known that the Taihu Emperor was one of the oldest great emperors of the human race. He was the first emperor to establish a divine dynasty and protect one side, and no one could compare his monuments. Unfortunately, I still don't know. A group of people spoke one after another of several great emperors, but this ancient young man all showed confusion and shook his head to show that he didn't know. This world of cultivation is just like this. It is too ancient and difficult to have a chronological record. The timing must rely on the completion date of an ancient emperor. Do you know about the Holy Emperor of Taiyin, Sr.? Gu Feng stood under the grey iron token, enveloped by the Mongolian divine light and Li Heishui, and asked the ancient youth who was not far from him. In his opinion, this powerful figure with all the divine power of the Taiyin cannot be resisted by anyone, and it is probably the legitimate descendant of the Taiyin who asked this question. Boom! In an instant, the divine light of the Taiyin flickered, and the wind and clouds surged. The ancient man ignored the protective artifact passed down by the head of the 13 major bandits in the northern region and landed directly in front of Gu Feng, his gaze somewhat urgent and excited. The Holy Emperor of Taiyin. How many years has he been sitting here? Gu Feng was almost suffocated by the power of the Taiyin, but he still gritted his teeth and answered seriously. The Holy Emperor of Taiyin was one of the first few ancient emperors of the human race. The time of his enthronement cannot be traced, but according to ancient records, he has been around for at least 3 to 4 million years. As soon as the words fell, the neighboring Gu Feng and Li Heishui both felt a shock in the powerful body, and the other person's breath froze for several seconds. Has the old man been sitting for 3 or 4 million years? The young man whispered to himself, and endless sadness and loss permeated from him. Not only Gu Feng and Li Heishui, but everyone else felt the sadness of this young man's great power. What is the relationship between Tao Yu and the Holy Emperor of Taiyin? Li Hong had a suspicion in his heart that he almost vomited blood, but he dared not speak up and cautiously asked. After a moment, the young man in the blue robe finally dissipated his sadness, his body straightened out, his eyes fixed on Gu Feng and Li Heishui, and he swept over each of the great powers before speaking. My name is Xuan, the son of the Holy Emperor of Taiyin. Si is an ancient surname, which can also be considered in line with the identity of the protagonist, an ancient person. Xian is black, combined with Taiyin, and the name is Si Xian. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. The Departing Prince. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 The Departing Prince. My name is Sixuan, the son of the Holy Emperor of Taiyin. Si Xian's voice was not high, but all the practitioners present listened attentively. Everyone's brain was plunged into a momentary crash. Son of the Holy Emperor of the human race. Still one of the founders of the two great maternal scriptures of the human race, the parent-child of the Holy Emperor of Taiyin. That Holy Emperor of Taiyin is a legendary figure in ancient books, capable of standing tall and powerful in the universe, invincible in the world, and accumulating unparalleled heritage for the human race. Are you really the parent-child of the Holy Emperor of Taiyin? The previous deputy saint of Dian Holy Land shook his hands like chaff, trembling as he asked such a question. It is hard to imagine that a person like him, who is extremely capable of half a step, would be so miserable because of one person or one sentence. Si Xian did not answer the question of this half-step superpower, and his gaze was still somewhat unsettled at this moment. He was sealed in the divine source and had been sealed directly for millions of years. The unfamiliar terms of ancient aristocratic family, Daoi Holy Land, and Jiuli divine dynasty were all unknown to him, but they left a faint impression in his mind, incredibly distant and genuine. As if waking up from a big dream and reincarnating for centuries, he felt that this world and this ancient star had become extremely unfamiliar. He only feels out of place with everyone here and finds it difficult to integrate, so he must always remain vigilant. The vast and majestic Taiyin spirit instantly penetrated through numerous formations and explored the ancient city where it stood. Si Xian's spiritual sense was so sharp that she clearly felt that the so-called divine city she was currently in was not an easy place to reach. Her dragon veins were not visible, and this was a declaration that at least a holy king could do. We must leave this place quickly. He let out a deep sigh in his heart. He had just been born, and the eunuch in this place didn't know what to do. It was really not appropriate to take the liberty of joining this great world. Xian's gaze swept over everyone, and his gaze fell on Gu Feng and Li Heishui, who were protected by the gray iron radiance. He saw with his own eyes that it was the pure young man among the two who cut him out of the stone, making him the benefactor who was able to break the seal. And, for some reason, he looked at the young man with a vague sense of familiarity in his heart, as if he had seen him somewhere before. Brush. The next moment, Sixuan pointed out, and the boundless black sea shadow surged out again, swallowing Gu Feng and Li Heishui along with the gray iron token that protected them. He glanced at the three great experts one by one, then nodded and spoke. I broke through the source today, time flies, and I have little understanding of the current world. I would like to ask these two heroes to help me clarify my doubts and see you again another day. After speaking, he flipped his palm and found an additional black ink jade plate in his hand. This is an artifact personally crafted by the Holy Emperor of Taiyin, which can travel through the void, cross the universe, and ignore most of the forbidden array patterns below the quasi-emperor. Xian waved her hand and put away the sea shadow that wrapped Li Heishui and the ancient style. After thinking for a moment, she also took action to put away the divine source that had originally sealed her, which was several square-sized. Goodbye. He nodded at the three great powers and the old man who had just inquired about him, and then the divine power of the Taiyin surged, directly activating the Mou Dharma plate. The old Taoist nun of Daoi Holy Land and the two powerful figures of Jiuli and Jiang families didn't even have time to pull the formation pattern, and the man who claimed to be the Prince of Taiyin had already torn open the void and disappeared. After a while, a group of elderly and young people looked at each other and woke up from today's dreamy observations. Farewell to the Emperor. An old man shouted and bowed to the direction where Xian had left, performing a great salute. This old man is also the senior elder of a certain holy temple, and now he has tears streaming down his face because he witnessed the son of the Holy Emperor of Taiyin with his own eyes. He has lost all his previous composure. Farewell to the Emperor. Farewell to the Holy Prince. Some people followed suit and bowed in the direction of Xian's departure, hoping that their voice could be heard by the Emperor through the void passage. That's the son of the Holy Emperor of the human race. Not to mention anything else, each emperor represents the most complete imperial scripture, how can it not make people envious? Old Qin, you love studying ancient books the most. Can you tell us if there is any record of the son of the Holy Emperor of Taiyin in ancient books? Yeah, Lord Qin. No one knows that you are studying such ancient books, but you need to help us old folks solve our problems. Among the crowd, Qin Laosheng is the half-step superpower of the Dayan Holy Land. At this time, he has been surrounded tightly by a group of enthusiastic old men and women. Everyone, don't make it difficult for me. The Holy Land of Dayan where I am located is only a tradition that has existed for over 100,000 years. How could I know such a long history? There were other people gathered together, searching for the most knowledgeable senior figures in the circle about ancient history, hoping to gain some intelligence about this prince, but none of them received a satisfactory response. After all, the deeds of the Holy Emperor of Taiyin millions of years ago are simply so ancient that they cannot be traced, and it is even more difficult to find his prince. Above the sky, at the edge of the pattern of the Tianzi Industrial Park, three great experts also gathered together, whispering about the incident of the Holy Prince they had just seen. Two of you, what do you think? Is it possible that some evil spirit has taken on the name of our human race emperor? The most cautious is the old Taoist named Yi from Daoi Holy Land. Although her voice is old, it is moderate and peaceful, giving people a sense of peace of mind. At this moment, she is doubting the identity of Xian. Fairy, don't talk nonsense. Who in the world can unleash such immense power of the Taiyin? The old sage of the Jiang family, Jiang Ziming, quickly stopped the old Taoist's words. He practiced the most powerful Eternal Universe Sutra and was most sensitive to innate evil. Brother Jiang is right, Mrs. E. That is indeed the Taiyin true power cultivated from the orthodox Taiyin manual. Li Hong also spoke up at the right time. This old imperial uncle, who has lived for over 1900 years and is usually happy and angry, turned red at this moment, as if he had become several hundred years younger in an instant. If an emperor is really born, then the sky of the Beidou will really change. The withered palm of the old Taoist surnamed Yi pressed on her shoulder where she had been hit by Sixuan, and her tone became ethereal. Yeah, just a dozen breaths, he easily defeated the three of us, and the whole process was just using his body and the dark sea of suffering. Li Hong spoke with a bitter expression on his face. He was also practicing the Jiuli Huangjing, which was not inferior to the Taiyin Jinjing. He was also a practitioner of the Huangjing, but was easily defeated by others. The bitterness is indescribable. That's an emperor. Following behind the ancient emperor, the holy emperor, is it someone like us who can compare? Jiang Ziming also spoke, and the tone of the old sage was unexpectedly a bit desolate. And there's that ancient-style little brother who opened such a strange stone. If he can dig through the Yunxian stone hidden in the Taiyin emperor, the source technique may have already reached the level of the older generation. Li Hong suddenly spoke up, as if thinking of something. What do you mean by that? If he can be taken away by the Prince of Taiyin, there must be a great chance. In the future, he must be a guest of various powers. I want to be kidnapped by that prince. Jiang Ziming's powerful tone was somewhat emotional, with genuine envy. After all, who would mind having fewer imperial scriptures and treasures in their hands? Li Hong sighed and flew towards the entrance of the Tianzihu Park with his hands behind his back. This old imperial uncle wields divine power, hunts in a mysterious robe, and his voice is as loud as a bell. Ladies and gentlemen, let's leave now. It's difficult to conceal what happened today, but we must remember that the emperor of the human race cannot be deceived. If anyone feels slandered by the emperor, my uncle and the Ninely Divine Court will definitely not forgive us. In the corner of the Tianzihu Park, a group of young heroes such as the Sheikh Light Holy Sun, the young emperor of Daxiao, and the military leaders of the Aragua Jiang family were all shocked and speechless. They are all great figures in the future of Donghuang, with perspectives and patterns that are completely incomparable to ordinary people. At this moment, they fell into silence together. The birth of the human emperor, who is probably only a dozen years older than them, can suppress the three great powers with one hand, which is terrifying. The entire body of the Sheikh Light Holy Sun was shrouded in layers of dazzling radiance, and at this moment, the radiance around him was extremely dazzling, making it impossible to look directly at him. After a while, this unfathomable hero finally let out a long sigh, leaving only one sentence for Xia Yiming, Jiang Yifei, Yao Yuekong, and others who were standing still. There are enemies in the world. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. First meeting with Yi Fan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. First meeting with Yi Fan. A small town located 70,000 miles away from Donghuang Xinqing. The dark power of the Taiyin created ripples in the void, startling several sparrows searching on the ground, flapping their wings and flying towards the distance. Brush. The figure with a disheveled green robe suddenly appeared in place. Although his green robe was brand new, its style clearly did not conform to the current habits of wearing Beidou, making it particularly eye-catching. In his hand, a palm-sized ink jade plate was 2 inches away from his palm, and the dark divine power on it was slowly fading. A mediocre town, this place is probably quite nice. The man in the green robe was Sixuan, who had just left the divine city. He crossed the void 70,000 miles in one breath with the ink jade plate left by his father, the holy emperor of Taiyin, before stopping outside this small city. Divine consciousness swept over, and there was no one around. With a wave of her sleeve, the pitch-black sea shadow disappeared, and 2 young men, who were only 16 or 17 years old, appeared in place. It was Gu Feng and Li Heishui who he casually invited. These 2 people are obviously still in a closed circle. After all, it only took a few breaths from being trapped by Sixuan to being released here. Gu Feng rubbed his head, which was a bit dizzy due to long-distance teleportation, before noticing the man in green standing in front of the two of them. It's him. The man who claims to be the son of the Holy Emperor of Taiyin. Gu Feng suddenly felt a chill on his spine, instinctively grabbing Li Heishui's shoulder and about to forcefully activate a final measure in the sea of suffering. Little leaf, run. How many breaths can my ancient weapon hold? Almost at the same time, Li Heishui also woke up and roared to throw out the gray iron token in his hand, buying time for himself and Gu Feng. Who? Unexpectedly, this artifact, which was obtained from one of the 13 major bandits in the northern regions and is said to have been infinitely close to Wang Bing, was pushed back into Li Heishui's arms by a gentle force of the Taiyin. Little brother, you too are bothering me and claiming to be self-proclaimed, but for unknown reasons, you are going to take action against me. Isn't that good? Sixuan had a faint smile on his face, and his black hair draped over his shoulders. Although he practiced the art of Taiyin, it did not show any softness, but rather a sense of toughness. Ha ha ha, senior, you're too serious. Gu Feng didn't dare to be careless at all, while playing haha and continuing to urge the ultimate means in his body. There's no need to put it this way. I just want to talk to you about the current Beidou. You're just here because you've practiced the Dao Jing. Sixuan injected a wisp of Taiyin true power into each of their bodies, and the icy Taiyin true power instantly cleared their minds, calming their previously tense emotions. The ancient wind repeatedly urged the two copper pieces inside the body to be ineffective, and after being struck by the true power of Taiyin by Sixuan, I suddenly felt my mind clear and could hear the other person's words. The other party was able to recognize at a glance that what they were practicing in the Luanhai realm was the Taoist scripture. Faced with such a character, without two pieces of green copper to exert their power, it is probably impossible to do anything wrong. I don't know why the senior brought me to here, what's going on? He lightly pressed Li Heishui's hand as he reached for the gray iron ancient token in his arms, gesturing to his friend not to panic. It seemed that this great expert did not have any malicious intent. This is not a place to talk, let's find a quiet place. Sixuan did not answer the other party's question, but led the two of them into this small town and found a restaurant to enter. Under the surprised gaze of the shop owner, Sixuan casually threw a jet-black jade stone and wrapped it in an elegant and quiet single room. Gu Feng and Li Heishui were stunned as they watched this ancient man, who had been driving a familiar private room for millions of years, and then using hallucinations to communicate with the shop owner through divine sense. What? I already had this kind of tavern back then, not some primitive person. Sixuan smiled and beckoned the two of them to follow, and the three of them entered the private room in this ordinary small town from front to back. After the waiter warmed the wine for the three, he placed several plates of dim sum. Sixuan waved the waiter back and began to talk with them. Brother Gu Feng, there's no need to hide it anymore. I have the Taiyin divine eye, and although your method is clever, it can't hide from someone's eyes. Upon hearing this, Yi Fan let out a bitter smile and removed the disguise made by the earth-changing technique in Yuan Tian Shu. I dare not conceal my senior. My real name is Yi Fan, and I am the holy body of the past. By chance, I have offended many enemies. I am only doing this to protect myself. At the moment when Sixuan saw Yi Fan's appearance, a mysterious silver water ball in the Sendai underwent a wonderful change, and countless memories and story-like content appeared in his mind out of thin air. This water ball is a divine artifact possessed by Sixuan since she was young. The Holy Emperor of Taiyin said that it was a special attraction of Sixuan himself, but it has not changed much throughout the year. Now, just seeing the true face of this young man named Yi Fan, the water mass that had been silent for more than 20 years began to fluctuate, allowing Sixuan to passively learn a lot. Earth, Mount Taishan Mountain, Jilong Coffin, Mars, Great Thunder Temple. A large amount of information made Sixuan gently hold her head down, even as a prince of the ancient emperor and having seen countless great worlds, Sixuan was shocked. He sealed these sudden memories and calmly returned to the conversation with these two people. It's okay, since Brother Yi is honest with me, I will also open up. Firstly, I am indeed the son of the Holy Emperor of Taiyin. Although I am the eldest son, I also have an older sister who is over 7,000 years old. He picked up his glass and took a light sip. It was a homemade grain wine from the shop, with an average taste, but Sixuan still drank it happily. What kind of intelligence do you want to know, senior? Yifan and Li Heishui both breathed a sigh of relief when they saw that Sixuan had not shown any unusual colors due to the Holy Communion or other reasons, but they did not touch the snacks and wine glasses on the table. Instead, they sat upright and spoke with Yifan. You don't need to call me a senior, I'm only 25 years old this year. You can just call me by name or call me an elder brother. As for what I want to know, let's first talk about whether the Beidou has any influence related to the Taiyin. Sixuan gently shook her glass and smiled as she saw the two of them feeling quite restrained. Are there any forces related to Taiyin? Upon hearing this, both Li Heishui and Yifan's faces showed a look of contemplation, which made Sixuan's expression somewhat hopeful. There is a great sect in Zhongzhou called the Yin-Yang sect. Can that be considered, brother? Li Heishui is truly the grandson of a major bandit who has been wandering in the Beidou for many years, and soon thought of a religious leader located far away in Zhongzhou. Not practicing Taiyin, but practicing Yin and Yang. I'm afraid I'm not a descendant of a certain school that cultivates the Taiyin manual. Upon hearing these words, Sixuan couldn't help but shake her head. Brother, don't you know if the human race also has the Sun scripture? Perhaps the Yin-Yang sect has two great imperial scriptures. Yifan was also a novice with limited knowledge of Zhongzhou at this time, and upon hearing this, he guessed. Upon hearing these words, Sixuan couldn't sit still. He raised his glass and clinked it with Yifan, asking in surprise, Oh. I have only heard of the Taiyin scripture. Is there still a Sun Holy Emperor after my father? There is indeed the Sun Holy Emperor, and the great human emperor created the Sun scripture. Yifan clinked glasses with Sixuan and confirmed their speculation. Is it the Sun Holy Emperor of the human race? It is truly a blessing for the human race. Sixuan couldn't help but smile on her face and drank a glass from herself. Yifan and Li Heishui exchanged a glance, knowing that they had learned another great secret. Among the two holy emperors of the Taiyin Sun, the Taiyin Holy Emperor obviously became a Taoist earlier. If I really have the two great scriptures of the Taiyin and Sun, I will definitely visit the Yin-Yang cult in Zhongzhou. Sixuan smiled as she woke up and finally had something to do. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Sixuan's discussion on Taiyin. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Sixuan's discussion on Taiyin. This unknown small town in Donghuang is located in the elegant room of the tavern where Sixuan, Yifan, and others are located. Sixuan looked at Yifan and Li Heishui, who were sitting in the same place and stopped talking, with a puzzled expression on their faces. Two brothers, continue. Is there any other tradition related to the Taiyin? Hearing the words, Yifan's face was also a bit embarrassed. He smiled and said, Brother, forgive me for our superficial knowledge. As far as we know, there is really nothing too bureaucratic about Beidou's eastern wilderness, western desert, the Nanling Mountain, Beiyuan and Zhongzhou. I see, after all, millions of years have passed since my time, so there's no need for the two brothers to worry. Sixuan waved her hand and said she didn't mind this question. Brother, there's one more thing. Do you know about the Taiyin body? Yifan took another sip of wine and suddenly seemed to remember something, asking Sixuan. This sentence made Sixuan's finger move and her attention instantly turned to Yifan. Taiyin body. Are you sure it's Taiyin body? A thought flashed in Yifan's heart, and he couldn't help but imagine the very thin and frail little girl with big eyes but very agile. She was not young, but obedient and sensible, always helping and caring for her grandfather to share household chores. Not bad, it's indeed the Taiyin body. When I was down, I lived at that child's house, and her physique was recognized by the Jiang family in ancient times. Yi Fan looked up and saw that Sixuan had stood up at some point, her hands crossed, and she looked very excited. The rare occurrence of the Taiyin body in hundreds of thousands of years. My father has such a physique. With this birth, I am not at a disadvantage just because I have the opportunity to cultivate such a child. This statement left Li Heishui and Yi Fan's expressions stunned. They didn't expect that the Holy Emperor of Taiyin, who only exists in ancient books, would also have a Taiyin body. Where is that child now? I want to take her as the heir of the Tai *** system, may I have any difficulties? Sixuan's strong reaction surprised Yi Fan very much. He couldn't help but ask, is it not enough for you to support Tai *** Tong, brother? It seems that you are in a hurry to pass on the Dao Tong. Sixuan smiled and waved her hand, then replied, as for the Taiyin manual, it is only in the hands of the Taiyin body that one can fully exert their power. Although I have inherited my father's talent, I am not flawless in the Taiyin body and will eventually be beheaded. Upon hearing this, both Yi Fan and Li Heishui nodded to show understanding. Yi Fan thought for a moment and said, that Taiyin body is named Jiangtingting. She was the granddaughter of an old man I met at the beginning of my cultivation. She is currently practicing at the Jiang family in the wilderness, and a divine king whom I have a good relationship with has a high regard for her. Is the Jiang family in the wilderness the same family as the old man in the red robe who was there just now? Sixuan frowned and remembered the old man in the red robe, Jiang Ziming, who was fighting with him. The burning sensation made him certain that the other person was also practicing the imperial scriptures. Not bad, that Jiang Daning is the former saint of the Aragia Jiang family, which is a family with extremely powerful imperial soldiers. Li Heishui saw that there was a strong intention in Sixuan's eyes to analyze the enemy situation and then snatch people, and quickly reminded him. Upon hearing the 4 words, Jidao Emperor Soldier, Sixuan's originally fierce gaze instantly dissipated, and she became very unhappy. If there were imperial soldiers, I wouldn't be able to grab the Taiyin body. Brother, do you have to use a snatch? Yi Fan spoke in silence, feeling that his newly recognized brother also had a habit of being a big bandit. Brother, this is what you don't understand. The precious constitution of the Taiyin body, how easily would the Jiang family give it to me? It must be taken by force. Sixuan hugged Yi Fan's shoulder and introduced it to him with great familiarity. Let's discuss this matter again. I have a good relationship with the contemporary God King Senior of the Jiang family, and I am also quite familiar with Yu Shaoting. I should be able to help my brother, Yi Fan said after a moment of silence. Sixuan's eyes lit up, and she quickly poured a glass of wine for Yi Fan. She smiled and said, Brother Yi is someone of noble status. He helped me break the seal and also worked hard for me. It's really hard. Thank you very much, brother. Yi Fan thought of the divine source that covered several directions, and smiled as he toasted Sixuan. Li Heishui, standing beside him, looked at Sixuan and Yi Fan, who were sworn brothers and familiar drinkers, and his black face couldn't help but show a hint of a bitter smile. At the end of the day, this emperor is also a young man of 25 years old, full of vitality, and he can quickly get along with the two of himself. Speaking of which, my first task in the future, besides the little girl with a vaginal body, is the vaginal seal left by my father. Have the Yi and Li brothers heard of it? Sixuan drank another glass of wine with Yi Fan and Li Heishui, and opened her mouth to inquire. Just as he had just woken up in the source, he tried several times to summon the Taiyin Emperor seal relying on his innate Taiyin bloodline, but for some reason, there was no response. Taiyin seal. Emperor's seal. Li Heishui exclaimed and pulled apart Yi Fan. When he heard about the topic of the Jidao holy soldier, his wine suddenly woke up. Do later generations call that artifact the Emperor's seal? Have the Li brothers ever heard of its whereabouts? Upon hearing the intelligence that this ancient artifact truly existed, Sixuan immediately joined forces with Li Heishui. A few grandfathers at home snatched it up. Oh no, there is indeed a description of this Jidao Emperor's weapon in the ancient books they picked up. It is said that after the enthronement of the Holy Emperor of Taiyin, the human emperor was imprinted on the burial emperor star to suppress the great world for tens of thousands of years, and then flew into the depths of the universe. Li Heishui tried his best to recall the description of the emperor's seal in his mind, and stumbled to reveal such a clue. Is it the burial emperor star? I haven't heard of the ancient star name. Do the two brothers know about the existence of this ancient star? Sixuan rubbed her chin and asked the two of them. He was a little worried in his heart that the Taiyin Emperor seal could not be called out. If it weren't for the problem with the seal itself or for being banned by the enemy somewhere, how could he not worry? Yi Fan and Li Heishui shook their heads together. Li Heishui's understanding of ancient stars only came from ancient books, while Yi Fan only knew familiar names such as Earth, Yinggu, Beidou, and Ziwei, and had no knowledge of the burial emperor star. No problem, I will turn around and inform the world to inquire about the whereabouts of the Taiyin seal. The matter of burying the emperor star requires the help of the two brothers to pay attention. The three of them chatted for several hours, from the sun hanging high to the dazzling stars. During this time, Sixuan learned about the awkwardness of the ancient holy body and the difficulties of Yi Fan. The path to the four poles of the heavenly sealing holy body requires the passage of the infinite divine source. Since that's the case. As she spoke, the pitch-black divine light of the Taiyin in Sixuan's hand shone brightly, and there was an additional object emitting a blazing radiance in her hand, which was a divine source the size of a human head. I don't have many acquaintances in Donghuang either. The two brothers got to know each other as they met, so they entrusted the two brothers to spread the news that someone was looking for the emperor's seal in the divine city. Sixuan pushed the divine source to Yi Fan, and the divine object was not impure, quietly hanging in mid-air. Yi Fan knew that Sixuan was looking for an excuse to gift her divine source, and who couldn't do the task of spreading the message. Why give it to him? This not only shows the relationship between oneself and this emperor to the world, but also eliminates the need to take risks, which makes me grateful. That little brother would be disrespectful. Yi Fan was no longer polite and directly put away the divine source, which was the size of a human head. Chao Sixuan arched his hand. There's one more thing, Brother Yu wants Brother Yi to pass on the current Beta dialect to me, constantly transmitting the divine spirit. I believe the two brothers are also feeling tired. That's just a small matter. Yi Fan smiled and used the secret techniques in the Book of Heaven to infuse the language of the Beidou into the position of the Xiantai of Sixuan. A person of such great power as Sixuan learned the language of the Big Dipper in just a moment, and bowed to Yi Fan and Li Heishui with a smile, saying, If this matter arises, then I will send the two brothers back to that divine city. He glanced inwardly at the Sendai, and the silver shimmering water on top of it had once again dimmed, which made Sixuan slightly relieved. Excuse me, brother. Yi Fan and the other two immediately stood up and saluted. In addition, many brothers have asked me about the Emperor's soldiers, and the intensity of the Kunlun remnant tribe is a bit excessive in terms of the current plot. I have prepared another Emperor's soldier transition in my outline, end of this chapter. Chapter 8. The Seal of the Holy Emperor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. The Seal of the Holy Emperor. Leaving this tavern, Sixuan took out the Mou Tai and activated the runes on it, sending Gu Feng and Li Heishui back outside the divine city. At this time, it was midnight, and the Donghuang divine city was still shining brightly and brightly lit, illuminating the surrounding area for hundreds of miles like daylight. Brother C, please deliver it to this place. I'll say goodbye to you now. Yi Fan bowed slightly to Sixuan, and Li Heishui beside him also bowed. Then I'll leave, brothers. Don't forget about the matter between Taiyin Yin and the little girl Jiang Tingting. Sixuan also waved her hand and cautioned. Don't worry, brother. Sixuan turned around, and the ink jade plate in her hand once again burst into a pitch-black divine light, instantly disappearing with him in place. Dong Huang, it's getting windy. Looking at the direction in which Sixuan was leaving, Li Heishui scratched his head with a simple and honest expression, but spoke something meaningful. That's true, let's just sit and watch the wind and clouds rise. At this moment, Yi Fan's tender face had returned to the ancient style. He looked inside at the wheel sea, watching the ups and downs of the divine source above his golden bitter sea, and his heart couldn't help but be stirred. The two of them strode into the eastern wilderness divine city amidst the terrifying gaze of the gatekeeper. Brush. In a dense forest 200,000 miles away from Donghuang divine city, dark ripples of divine power appeared, and then the figure of a man in a blue robe appeared out of thin air. Sixuan was going to seclude herself this time, so the location she found was absolutely secluded. The forest here is tens of thousands of miles long, and it is also known as the deep forest without human habitation for thousands of miles. He had a premonition that the silver water ball in his sendai had an extraordinary origin, which may have caused unrest. It was better to be in such a deserted place. Sixuan found a vast deep pool and jumped into it. His body was as black as ink, and a divine light shone brightly, protecting him and quickly reaching the bottom of the pool. Drink. Sixuan let out a low cry and activated the secret techniques in the Taiyin manual, using the power of the cold attribute in the Taiyin divine power. Buzz. The divine light swept across the entire deep pool, and in less than a breath, the entire pool was frozen by the cold power of the Taiyin, forming huge chunks of ice. All the swimming fish and beasts in the deep pool, including the carp demon king who is several tens of zhang long and has a half-step high energy realm, were unable to react and were frozen in the cold ice. That's it, let's release them all later. Sixuan stood in the center of this huge cold ice, touching the bone marrow cold xianbing and muttering to herself with satisfaction. This is the Taiyin Xian ice made by Sixuan with the power of the supreme Taiyin and the pool water. Although it is only temporary, it can withstand most powerful bombardments and is an excellent place for seclusion. He sat cross-legged on the ice, his eyes closed, and all his energy focused on the silver-white water above Sendai. Sixuan's mind turned into a pitch-black little figure, cross-legged and looking up at the water above, her small hand slowly reaching over. Brush. At the moment when Sixuan's divine soul figure came into contact with the silver-white water mass, a jade-like mark appeared out of thin air on the water mass. Ha! The old man's mark. Sixuan instantly recognized that this mark was the emblem of his father, the Holy Emperor of Taiyin, and the fluctuation of his divine power was unquestionable. After being touched by Sixuan, the imprint of the Holy Emperor bloomed with eternal and boundless light, eventually condensing into a towering and heroic male figure in front of the water. The man looked like a middle-aged man in his 30s and 40s, with a sharp eyebrow and an electric gaze. He was dressed in a mysterious robe and just stood there, his body as if suppressing the great eras. Taiyin Holy Emperor. The gaze of this great emperor, who lived countless thousands of years ago, seemed to penetrate through the ages and fell on the divine figure of Sixuan. Father. Sixuan's divine figure clenched his fists tightly, trembling and shouting for his father, his face full of disbelief. Second, you finally opened the ban I set. The Holy Emperor of Taiyin spoke, although it was the voice of a middle-aged man in his 30s and 40s, there was a strong sense of vicissitudes and antiquity. This voice is too familiar to Sixuan, he is definitely his biological father, undoubtedly the Holy Emperor of Taiyin. Father, are you just reciting? Sixuan looked at her biological father's familiar face and couldn't help but joke, thinking about the millions of years apart. Bang! The Holy Emperor of Taiyin made a move, his huge palm carrying a strong black light, pressing Sixuan's divine figure to the ground. Although this is just an embodiment of my imprint, it also has some willpower. Time is limited, don't talk nonsense to your father. The imprint of the Holy Emperor of Taiyin spoke faintly. Although he was a noble emperor of the human race, he thought he was an ordinary father, laughing and scolding his son. With a gentle wave of his hand, it seemed to tug at the vastness of the universe, freeing him from the constraints and suppression of the Sixuan Shenyan villain, and flying with him to the front of the silver water mass. Father, this is... Sixuan stared at the flowing liquid and couldn't help but ask. Second, do you know the three wonders of ancient times? Although the Emperor of Taiyin is just an embodiment of a mark, his divine power is as vast as the boundless ocean, and every word and action is accompanied by a great way. The three wonders. Sixuan was puzzled and said she had never heard of these so-called three wonders. The so-called three wonders, also known as the three great immortal mysteries, have been passed down from ancient times as the immortal disaster left over from the immortal era. The voice of the Holy Emperor of Taiyin seemed to pierce through the past and present, but the words and phrases clearly fell into the ears of Sixuan. Becoming an immortal. Is it a disaster? Sixuan had heard her father confide in her more than once about the hardships of ancient times, but this was the first time she had actually talked about becoming an immortal. Yes, you will know in the future. Let's first talk about the three wonders of Feishian Waterfall, Shenhun Pond, and Reincarnation Lake, and the three disasters of becoming immortals. The Holy Emperor of Taiyin whispered, explaining these so-called three wonders. It's just a clone of an imprint, but it feels like the Holy Emperor of Taiyin himself has crossed the ages and is conversing with his own young son. When you were young, the boss once took you on a tour of the Beidou. Unexpectedly, an unknown object flew over the starry sky and disappeared into your sendai. Listening to the words of the Holy Emperor of Taiyin, Sixuan also remembered her older sister, who was over 7,000 years older than her. It seemed that she had indeed taken him to Beidou when she was young, but her memory was inexplicably quite vague. Is it one of the three major disasters of becoming immortal? Sixuan's memory gap was restored, and he immediately took several steps back. Looking at the undulating water masses in his sendai, a chilling feeling struck the back of his head. My own father is the Holy Emperor of the human race. How could it be easy to be called a disaster by such an existence? The Holy Emperor of Taiyin looked at Sixuan with a somewhat frightened gaze, nodded, and then shook his head again. After your incident, I searched through the universe and finally found the Reincarnation Lake and the Divine Soul Pool in two extremely terrifying life-forbidden areas. The Feishian waterfall cannot be found, but what is certain is that the composition of this water mass in your body is indeed the same as that of the Reincarnation Lake. What do you mean, father? With the imprint of her own father, the Holy Emperor of Taiyin, standing in front of her, Sixuan's mind quickly calmed down, seeming lost in thought but hesitant to say more. You guessed it right, the substance in your sendai is not from the Reincarnation Lake in the Beidou. Compared to the Reincarnation Lake left by the Dark Lord, you are a naturally formed water of the Reincarnation Lake. The protagonist's golden finger has also been set in this way. Personally, I want to recreate a more realistic and mystical version of the sky covering, so I have restrained a lot. I won't do anything about lottery signing in, such as the immortal ancient Dharma and immortal scriptures. It's just a segmented and open sky covering storyline in a pool of innate Reincarnation Lake, isn't it excessive, brothers? End of this chapter. Chapter 9. One-Hand Reincarnation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 One-Hand Reincarnation, is it a reincarnation lake born from heaven and earth? Sixuan murmured to herself, and when the Holy Emperor of Taiyin talked about this reincarnation lake, there was also a hint of speculation and doubt in his tone. It was hard to imagine how terrifying things could make the human race Holy Emperor, who had been emperor for 30,000 years, uncertain. However, the cultivation level that Sixuan is currently in limits his horizons. There are too many things he cannot try, and he can only passively receive the information and memories brought by this reincarnation lake. I call it a handful of reincarnation. The incarnation of the imprint of the Holy Emperor of Taiyin spoke again. Actually, there is no need to worry too much. There are many differences between this handful of reincarnation and the Beidou Beach reincarnation lake. The specific difference is unknown, and you still need to explore it yourself. Ah, I know now, Father. The pitch-black figure transformed by Sixuan's divine thought was carved like ink jade, and he saluted the Holy Emperor of Taiyin. When Sixuan was born in the past, the Emperor of Taiyin was already over 26,000 years old, and the second emperor had already lived to his old age, definitely considered an old son. After 25 years of exposure, Sixuan deeply knew that the Holy Emperor of Taiyin was not only a human emperor, but also an old man who had worked hard to protect the entire human race for more than 30,000 years. As a young son, she had to fight for a place for him. Looking at the pitch-black figure kneeling on the ground, the Taiyin Holy Emperor, who looked only 30 or 40 years old, also showed a comforting smile on his face that did not match his age. He said lightly, "Since you have come out of the divine source, don't seek self-proclaimed anymore. Striving for a place in this world is better than being a living dead person for 10,000 years." His voice was not high, but it was like Hongzhong Dalu repeatedly washing through Sixuan's Xiantai Dao heart, making the black figure carved with ink and jade even more sacred and grand. The matter of the reincarnation lake has been explained to you, and my mark should have dissipated. Second, lift your head and give Father another look at you. Upon hearing this, the Moyu little man kneeling on the ground lifted his head and a smile appeared on his face. Suddenly, Sixuan remembered something and asked, "Father, can your current imprint incarnation summon the Taiyin seal?" "I have tried several times, but there has been no response." "Really, I'll call it and give it a try." I heard it was a problem with his own imperial weapon, and the incarnation of the Holy Emperor of Taiyin also showed a serious expression. He closed his eyes, moved his hands a few times, and used the technique of summoning imperial soldiers. After a moment, there was still no response. The face of Taiyin Holy Emperor Gu Jing Wubua also showed a few ripples. It took a long time before he spoke up. "The Great Seal is missing, the seal spirit is damaged, and I am still sleeping. My incarnation is about to dissipate, and I can't wake him up. It seems you need to find it yourself." At this point, his majestic figure gradually dimmed, showing signs of dissipation. "I value righteousness and set it at burying the Emperor, flying immortals, and purple osmanthus. Your blood can repair the spirit of weapons. Go find it." In the next moment, the imprint of the Holy Emperor of Taiyin turned into a speck of brilliance, most of which flew out of Sixuan's eyebrows and scattered into the void, while a small portion fell back to Sixuan's Sendai, leaving behind a trace of gifts for him. "Is it the Burial Emperor star, the Flying Immortal star, or the Purple Vibrio star?" Sigh. For a long time, the little Mou, who had been transformed by Sixuan's divine thoughts, sighed and rolled on the ground before standing up, gently touching the spot where the imprint of light had dissipated. Soon, he sorted his thoughts and his gaze fell back on the silver water once again. A handful of reincarnation. This is the name given by the Holy Emperor of Taiyin to this liquid that is of the same quality but not of the same origin as the reincarnation lake. Let's first take a look at the specific situation of the strange memory triggered by the Yi brothers. Thinking about it, Mou stood up from the ground, his little hand touching this handful of reincarnation again. This time, without the obstruction of the Holy Emperor's seal, Sixuan's divine mind effortlessly penetrated into the water. In an instant, a large amount of memories flooded into the divine soul of Sixuan like waves, perhaps for a few years, or perhaps for more than a decade. That's looking at the world from a person's perspective, such as university gatherings, mountaineering, Kowloon coffins, Inghua, Beidou, and ancient forbidden areas. In this memory, Sixuan seemed like a bystander, watching the young man and his classmates being abducted by the mysterious 9 dragons' coffin. After several twists and turns, they arrived at the forbidden area in the wilderness and took the divine medicine to become a teenager, cough cough. The Mou little figure transformed by Sixuan suddenly coughed violently, and he forcefully pulled himself out of this supernatural state with this cough. Because that young man's face is so familiar. Sixuan saw it just now. It is indeed Yifan. Are all the things I see what Yifan has experienced before? Sixuan muttered to herself. In that memory, others called the young man Yifan, but it wasn't until the young man took the divine medicine and turned back into a teenager that Sixuan was able to confirm. The person in her memory was the young man Yifan, who only formed a cause and effect with her during the day. A mortal youth beyond the ancient star of the Big Dipper, relying on opportunities and courage to take this step, my brother Yi is not easy. As she spoke, Sixuan's own face also showed a hint of a smile, without any sense of superiority that could reveal the other party's secrets. He is the emperor, what grand occasion has he never seen? How could it be that the other person has experienced something special that triggers some malicious thoughts? Let me see over there what my newly recognized good brother has gone through over the years. The little hand of the Moyu villain once again plunged into a handful of reincarnation. To embark on the path of cultivation by practicing the Tao Jing, to venture into the Emperor's Mountain to save the God King, to step on the Immortal Temple, to enter the Yao Pool, and to break through the 4 extremities. Sixuan looked at the lantern and continued to observe the events that happened in the past and future at the same time. The news of Gu Feng and Li Heishui's return to the Divine City also triggered a frenzy in this vast Donghuang Divine City. It was only an afternoon and an evening before Yifan cut out the Sixuan in the Tianzi garden of Dawi Shifang. But every practitioner present is a cultivator with their own cultivation, and their initiative is unimaginably strong. The news that Sixuan, the son of the Holy Emperor of Taiyin, was cut out in the Tianzi Hao Park of Dawi Shifang, spread throughout the entire Donghuang Divine City in just half an hour. With the testimony and supervision of super experts from the Dawi, Jiuli, and Jiang families, this news has not been exaggerated or discounted at all, and has quickly spread to the ears of every holy land of aristocratic families and high-level officials of the Great Church. In just one afternoon and one night, the thresholds of many ancient and desolate families and holy sites with a long history are about to be broken through. Ji family, Jiang family, Yao Qi, Yao Guang. Many half-step great powers, even the slain King have requested visits in front of these holy land gates, just to find a little bit of information about the oldest human race emperor and his son among these ancient holy land aristocratic families. A large number of saints and emperors riding phoenix chariots and dragon chariots were originally in this Donghuang Divine City, and many people were preparing to attack Purple Mountain. Nowadays, the vehicles of these great figures have all arrived at the stone archway of Dawi Holy Land, for no other reason, just to see the mysterious Yunxian stone that once allowed the emperor of the human race to sleep deeply. For a moment, this once prestigious Donghuang Divine City was once again pushed to the forefront of the entire Beidou. Holy Lord! The descendant of Yuan Shi, Gu Feng, who was invited away by the Prince of Taiyin, has returned. Emperor. Young Emperor. The young ancient style who opened up the human race emperor in Dawi Holy Land has been invited to the heavenly demon palace. Master. The young hero of the eastern wilderness, the descendant of the Yuan heavenly master, has an ancient style of saying that the emperor of Taiyin has something to say to various noble families and dynasties in the Holy Land. Although it was already midnight, the practitioners didn't care about these things. The news of Yifan and Li Heishui returning to the holy city only took a few 15 minutes to ferment, and through various communication tools, it spread to the ears of major saints, family leaders, emperors, and religious leaders. The efficiency of this group of great experts is terrifying. In just 2/4 of an hour, the Tianyao palace suspended above the sky was surrounded by countless rare birds and beasts such as unicorns, phoenixes, dragons, black dragons, and so on. The chariots were packed with the entire sky. This segmented and open sky covering plot will fill the gap in the future, without any strange high-dimensional interference settings. Additionally, there is a small bug in the plot. At this stage, Yi Fan will have to wait for a few days before returning to the Jiang family to know about Tingting's genitalia. It's up to me to make up for this and apologize for it. I just knelt down and kowtowed. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Tianyao Palace Conference. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Tianyao Palace Conference. Rumble. Hula. Dong dong dong. At this time, it was already early morning, but the eastern wilderness god city was illuminated by divine light, especially near the Tianyao Palace near the center, with countless chariots shrouded in brilliant light covering half of the sky. Every chariot is made of precious divine wood and jade, giving it a sense of nobility and oppression that makes most cultivators kneel down to the ground. These rare birds and beasts all converge to over a meter, with a wide variety of species, including black dragons, purple phoenixes, silver dragons, and red cranes. Hanging in mid-air without making any roars. Yi Fan and Li Heishui both stood tall in the magnificent Tianyao Palace, gazing at the terrifying posture outside the palace. They were both the first to see such a powerful figure. Brother Gu, Brother Li, tonight, you two are the focus of the entire eastern wilderness. The young master of the heavenly demon palace, Yao Yuekong, also stood on this floor of the palace, smiling at Yi Fan and Li Heishui. He is a man as rich as jade, with purple hair and purple clothes, and a gentle smile always hanging on his face. It is rumored that this is a silver wolf who gained enlightenment. He is the favorite son of the owner of the heavenly demon palace, with unparalleled combat power and proficiency in business, which gradually cultivated this temperament. Beside him was a beautiful woman dressed in green palace attire, with a calm gaze but often unconsciously revealing a strong sense of authority, making it difficult to look directly at. She is one of the deputy palace masters of the heavenly demon palace and also the younger sister of this palace master. Her cultivation is considered a master in the realm of great abilities. At this time, she accompanies the demon moon sky to handle the situation here. Brother Yukong praised me falsely. It was just a coincidence that I was chosen by Brother C. Yi Fan now transformed into an ancient style, with a slightly immature smile on his face, and politely said. Yao Yuekong and the beautiful woman in palace attire both stiffened for a moment, just one afternoon and one evening, and had already become so familiar with the Emperor of Taiyin. But what kind of person is Yao Yuekong, not only leading the army in cultivation and unparalleled combat power, but also proficient in the ways of merchants? He has seen all kinds of great figures before, so he shouldn't be too embarrassed at this moment. He spoke up. I wonder how the Gu and Li brothers have considered the plan proposed by my Tianyao palace to the two brothers. Upon hearing this, Yi Fan and Li Heishui's faces also became slightly solemn. They exchanged a glance at each other, indicating that they had already reached a consensus. Yi Fan slightly arched his hand, revealing a hint of the aura of the master of the source technique. He bowed to the demon moon sky and the beautiful woman behind him, saying, The two of us think Brother Yukong's proposal is very good. Nowadays, many important figures from the Holy Land Imperial Court have not arrived yet, and revealing the news rashly may not have enough influence. Indeed, it would be better to reveal this news tomorrow before the auction of the Heavenly Demon Palace. Upon hearing Yi Fan's words, even Yao Yuekong's composure couldn't help but bring joy to her eyebrows. She stepped forward and grabbed Yi Fan's hand, repeatedly saying, Thank you to Brother Gu for the empty moon. I will have the maid prepare the guest rooms for you too. Tomorrow, we will announce this news to the world. He couldn't hide his joy in his heart. Tomorrow's auction happened to hit two major milestones. One was the preparation for a second battle after the failed siege of Zishan by major holy sites, and the other was the information that Gu Feng and Li Heishui personally obtained from the Emperor of Taiyin. In the hands of the Heavenly Demon Palace, they are holding such precious intelligence, as well as weapons and divine materials they have collected from the entire eastern wilderness. In addition, the divine medicine opened by the ancient wind in the stone workshop yesterday is not profitable. It is the evil sect to not make a pot full of overflows. Then let me go and report this good news to the big shots outside. The beautiful woman in green palace attire asked with a dignified smile beside Yao Yuekong. Then please trouble Aunt May. Yao Yu nodded. Although he was only in the Four Extremes realm now, he could be considered as the superior of the deputy palace master in palace attire. The woman in palace attire slightly bowed and disappeared into place with a flash of her figure. When she reappeared, she was already outside the palace, in front of the dragon and phoenix chariots of many important figures. As soon as this beautiful woman surnamed May appeared, it was like a great demon blocking the sky. The terrifying aura emitted a hint, making the exotic beasts and rare birds pulling carts in the air roar and bow their heads as if they had encountered a natural enemy. The palace-dressed woman seemed very satisfied with the reaction of these exotic beasts, with powerful divine powers operating and mature and charming female voices spreading throughout the entire sky. Concubine, Mei Qianni from the heavenly demon palace, I have seen all the great master's abilities. Humph. Ha. Tianyao Palace. Many chariots hum softly, and although many experts, who are also immortal too, are unhappy with the heavenly demon palace running out to speak for Gu Feng and others, they have to admit that they have no connection in this regard. These voices of great displeasure were clearly heard by Vice Palace Master Mei, but the smile on her face remained the same as before, without it. Everyone liked the feeling of others being unhappy and giving money to themselves. The young master of our heavenly demon palace, Yao Yuekong, has a good relationship with the genius Gu Feng of the source technique. Master Gu has entrusted the message that the Taiyin Emperor wants to convey to our heavenly demon palace. The Vice Palace Master Mei, with a pair of delicate hands as delicate as jade, folded in front of him, looked around with a flawless smile on his face and said, "Tomorrow afternoon, before the auction of our heavenly demon palace begins, Master Gu will personally explain to everyone the reward offered by the Emperor of Taiyin and spread it widely. This is not only what Master Gu and my heavenly demon palace mean, but also the Emperor's request." For a moment, the powerful figures of the major holy sites and gods were all stunned. Unexpectedly, on this day, the demon palace had the means to use such means to create momentum for their own auction. Alright, if it's okay, everyone should go back to your mansion. I respectfully bid farewell to all the saints' great abilities. This Vice Palace Master Mei Qianni has a very bad personality, and even with a smile on her face, she wants to drive a group of saints away. Well, then come back tomorrow. What a powerful heavenly demon palace. A group of great powers were obviously angry, but they had to leave. You should know, the heavenly demon palace is not easy to deal with, and the Taiyin Emperor, who has been crushing the three great powers with more than 10 breaths, is even more difficult to deal with. This auction, my concubine's body can also be considered a great achievement. Looking at the group of great talents who returned in disappointment, Vice Palace Master Mei Qianni's beautiful face showed a satisfied smile, her supernatural powers revealed, and she walked back to the palace of the heavenly demon palace with lotus steps. The next day, at midnight, the backstage of the auction in Tianyao Palace. Yi Fan watched as the auction house, which was supposed to be crowded with people, turned out to be very quiet. Many people sat quietly in their seats without any intention of speaking. What's going on? These big shots here have grudges against each other. Yi Fan, following the principle of asking questions if he doesn't understand, asked the demon Moon Kong beside him. That's not true, it's just that Aunt May is afraid that there will be too many people at this auction, so she has set the admission qualification to be at least half-step level, and half-step level can only bring one accompanying person, and big level can only bring two accompanying people. Yao Yuekong smiled and shook her head, clearly knowing her deputy palace master very well. I understand, everyone pretends to be experts without speaking, right? Yi Fan suddenly spoke out, and Li Heishui beside him also showed the same expression as before. Ha ha ha, let's not talk about the ancient brothers anymore. Let's prepare to become the center of attention. Yao Yuekong laughed and patted Yi Fan's shoulder, then strode up to the front desk of the auction house. End of this chapter.